Congratulations, you bought yourself a 6-track looper, and now you're ready to let all those tracks play over and over and over again forever and ever, right? Wrong. You actually want some of them to only play once sometimes. What if you had yourself a drum fill that you could play between the pre-chorus and the chorus? For that, you're going to need to turn one of your tracks into what's called one-shot mode, and that is today's button of interest. My name is Mike, and this is Cuzolio. As you can see, the manual doesn't tell you much, so let's actually show what's happening. If track 1 has one shot off and track 2 has one shot on, very simply, track 2 will stop after a single time. What else is going on? So track 1 is allowed to overdub. You can add to the phrase as often as you want, but when you have one shot on, you cannot add to the phrase. You're stuck with whatever your current phrase is. A special note that we'll talk about more is that you can add overdub layers before you turn on one shot. Next, when you have one shot off, loop sync is allowed with other tracks. But when one shot is on, it doesn't matter what you have set in your loop sync setting or parameter, it's always going to be overridden to be off. The same exact thing goes for the number of measures. You can set your measures ahead of time to be either auto, free, or any number, but when you have one shot on, you are automatically overridden to always be free. So you have to start the recording and you have to stop the recording. You can't just let the recording go until it reaches the end of a predetermined number of measures. In addition, if you hit that play stop or record play again during playback, your track 2 with one shot on is going to start over. If you hit play stop or record too fast though, it's going to think you did a double tap or a click and it will actually stop the track. So here's the example. It's playing and then I hit it again. And sure enough, it will start over and play from the beginning. Now, what about when it's recording? As you can see, we are recording and we hit record play again, and it plays another single time. Why is that? Well, no matter what your recording action is, whether you're going record play and then dub, or record dub and then play, remember that dub is not allowed when you are in one-shot mode. So if you're going to use the same button that you normally would, which is going from record mode into play mode, it's going to play a single time. If you want to work around this, then you're going to have to enter stop mode instead. So you could have your separate stop pedal, or you got to do your click for record play buttons, or click for your play stop buttons. You cannot override this just by setting the number of measures. Finally, if you want to avoid the scenario where you hit a button too fast and it just stops the track, you can always use the moment play button. There are a couple downsides to it though. First off, your foot must stay there, and moment play is not available through the assigns menu, so you can't hand this off to a MIDI controller and let it hold the button down for you. Okay, now that we know how to record and how to play it, let's talk about how we can actually control this. Obviously, you can go into the loop menu and you can find these features and you can turn them on and off. Second place you can do it is with your knobs that are just below your screen. You can set any one of those to track 1 or track 4 and have it be clicked back and forth between on and off. But I would highly recommend against this because the knobs are a system-wide setting. So if you've got knob 2 always turning on and off track 3's one-shot ability, it doesn't matter whether you're on memory 1 or memory 88, it's going to always be there. So you probably don't want to do it there. Instead, you can use an assign. And those can vary by memory, so you can have it on a couple of memories and not on others. So just a quick note here, in 99% of cases, you probably don't need to turn this on and off. Most of you would only want to have a single sound that goes, which would be your bass recording. But if you are the kind of person that wants to overdub a few times and then change it into a one-shot, you can do that. You can build up your phrase first and then turn it on. Note that you cannot change one shot from off to on or on to off while the track is actually playing. You have to stop it first, then you can switch its mode. Okay, so how should you use this? First off, as an on-demand sound pad, you'll probably have something like one measure, the track will be set to multi-mode, it's no syncing allowed, and you can either record it live while you're performing or you could pre-record it ahead of time. Things that you might consider are a single note, like a crash or a bass drum. Maybe there's a recurring guitar riff that you want to play all the time while you're busy doing something else with your actual guitar. And then you could have other specific sounds from a known song. For instance, the bells from Hell's Bells. And for this, you have the option to actually bounce it to other tracks. For the purposes of this video, I'm not going to get into bouncing too much, but all you really need to know is that when you turn on bouncing, you can record the audio from one track onto another. So just know that bouncing is available to you. And if you're going to use a pre-recorded sound as a sound pad, you can actually record it using bouncing onto other tracks. Next, you might have some pre-recorded supplemental sounds. Again, it could be one or more measures, it's going to be multi-mode, and it's not synced, but you're definitely pre-recording it because these are sounds that you don't actually have with you. So it might be a speech or a voiceover that you add as flavor to your songs. It could be instruments that you didn't want to carry with you. So if there's just a few sounds or a quick bar that you wanted to play from this very specific instrument and don't want to lug it there, or maybe it's a very specific drum fill that you had to record ahead of time, like a Phil Collins classic. Now, the one I recommend the most is obviously going to be transitions. This could be 2 or more measures, multi, not synced, and you're probably going to do it live, but it could be very fun things like adding a drum fill or some type of a guitar fill that crescendos, and you can use that in different places in the song after recording it only once. This next one might not be for everybody, but you can technically advance one song section to another. This is probably going to be 2 or more measures. It's going to be in single mode, and it's not synced, but there's an asterisk there. I'm going to explain it here in a second. So combined with the fact that your track will be in one-shot mode, you're going to need one additional assign, and that assign is going to make the next track play when the first track stopped. This could be used for pre-chorus to chorus, intro to verse, things like that. This one probably deserves a whole nother video, but I'm just going to give it to you really quick. Just know this is an advanced technique. It's easy to mess up. I mess it up myself, so I don't really use it. Let's imagine a song where you have a verse that you've recorded on track 3, a pre-chorus on 4, and a chorus on track 5. So the verse repeats a couple of times, let's say 8 bars, and then the pre-chorus is real short. It could be only 2 bars long, and you don't really need to repeat it because it's just 1 chord in the first measure and 1 chord in the second measure. Then you jump into the chorus, and that repeats over and over. So that's why you can't record those first 2 bars along with your second 4 bars because the chorus is repeating back and forth. So there's a few ways to address this. The first one is a lot of people will just keep their drums going, and they'll play live a couple of chords, and then they'll jump into their chorus. Another way could be that they're going to make the entire 10 bars be your track 4 or track 5. Finally, you don't have to just wait for track 4 to stop and hope and pray track 5 starts. You could just tap it. You could let it happen normally like you're going from track 3 to track 4 or track 4 to track 5. So there's a lot of ways around this, so don't bother with this if it's too difficult. First, tracks 3, 4, and 5 are all in single mode, and track 4 starts with 1 shot off. You're going to need that extra assign to have a source be track 4's playing and stopping, and track 5 will be the target playing and stopping. Let's talk about that source part of it. So when an assign uses a play stop as a source, it will use the target's minimum setting while playing or overdubbing, and maximum setting while stopped. And nothing really happens when you initially make the recording. So in this particular case, when track 4 stops, track 5 will start playing. But something to note is that there is no button for turning assigns on and off unless you're going through the menus. So this will be on the whole time when you start your song. So you have to do this in a very specific way. First, you're going to record track 4, and you could enter into play mode after recording, then you could go back into overdub mode, back and forth, doesn't matter. But the second you hit stop, track 5 will begin recording. So you might as well either hit stop and start recording 5, or go over and tap track 5 to start recording. So now you're recording track 5, and again, you can record, you can overdub, you can stop, you can do whatever. Then, once you're done with that, you can turn track 4's one-shot ability on, and forevermore, once you go and press play on track 4, it will play once, and then it will jump to track 5, and it will continue looping again. There's so many other ways you can do this. This is just for the curious. Last but not least, the final way that you should use this could be for something like a click or a backing track. You could have many measures, you'd be multi, it's not able to be synced, and more than likely you're pre-recorded everything. So you could have a whole song's click track or a backing track, and if you do, I would hide it on pedal mode 2 or 3 so that you don't actually hit it and start the whole thing over again. But then again, you don't need that to be in one-shot mode. You could just keep it regular, so this is kind of a halfway in between one. If you're a soloist and you simply want to jam over a backing track, yes, it'll play one time. It doesn't have to be one shot, but it could be. Finally, if you're in the middle of a set break, why have an iPod that you have to plug in and press play on? You could just go over to another memory, you could pre-record a couple of songs onto track 1, and you could hit play, and you're all set. harmony, 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 harmony. Last but not least, I've been talking about the RC-600 because that's what I have. Let's see who else can do this function. So here's the criteria. Can I get a spare track that plays only once on my looper pedal, and it can be turned on and off during a performance? So RC-600, yes, it's got 6 tracks, it's got a drum track. Yes, I can turn on and off all 6 of them, and I can do it live while I'm playing. Next comes the RC-500. It's got 2 tracks and a drum track. Yes, both tracks can be changed, and yes, I can control them while I'm actually looping and performing. Next comes the RC-5. It's got 1 track and a drum track, and I said this is kind of available. If you're going to use it as a backing track, absolutely, this works. But if you only have 1 track and you're using it as a one-shot, it might not be the best use of that looper pedal. Next, we have a few pedals that are in descending order of number of tracks. All of these can be turned on and off one shot for each individual track. But no, you cannot do it live while you're doing it. On the Aeros loop station specifically, when you have 2 one-shots connected to each other, they will alternate back and forth as a loop song structure. So for instance, if you had AABA, you might consider track 1 is AA and track 2 is BA. Again, for all these ones, you probably don't need to turn this on and off during your performance. So is this really a downside? I'm not too sure. Finally, these lower 5 don't actually have any availability for turning one of your tracks into just a single one shot. All right, so that is one shot. Real simple stuff or real complicated stuff, however you want to do it. Make sure to add it when you can and don't use it excessively if you don't need to. If you're the type of person that usually has only 3 tracks or 4 tracks or 5 tracks going on all of your songs, then hey, you've got spare tracks. You could add drum fills, you could add sound pads, you could maybe play around with transitioning from one thing to another. Whatever you do, I hope you're becoming a better musician, a better looper, and I hope your shows are getting a little bit better because you're adding in a little more flavor. I'm Mike, and this is Cuzolio.